Welcome to this episode of The State of Mirrorless, our series of interviews with photographers and industry experts who use mirrorless camera systems. Today it is my pleasure to introduce you a young photographer from England, Verity Milligan, who I think is based in the British Midlands, around Birmingham. Is that right, Verity?
It is indeed, yes. I'm based in Birmingham at the minute.
And she will talk to us about her photography and her choice of camera equipment. So, how are you, Verity? How's the weather up there?
It's good today. It's cold, but the sun's been out, which has been a bit of a rarity recently. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. It's Friday. It's a good day. I'm glad to be here as well.
It has been a rarity in Italy too. The sun lately.
Oh yes, it's lovely.
Only rain, yes.
Oh, apparently it's supposed to snow this weekend. I'm excited about the snow. There's not been enough wintry weather so far. It's just been a bit damp.
So today my co-host is going to be Mathieu Gasquet from Mirror Lessons, a website dedicated to everything mirrorless. How are you, Mathieu?
I'm fine. I'm good. As the weekend should be great here too, so I hope for a bit of sun because it was a non-stopping rain for almost 6 days. So you have to shoot inside and try to find something interesting to shoot inside because.
Yeah, for one like me who likes to shoot outside most of the time, it's a bit of a pity. So. Verity, let's talk a bit about you. What's your how did you get started with photography, and what do you like to photograph most?
Photography, I've always been into photography in some way or another. When I was young, I used to shoot on film, but then I stopped. I tried to be an artist for a while, and eventually fell back into photography, actually through filmmaking. So started filmmaking and training students to filmmake, and picked up a camera, a digital SLR again when I was about 25. So it just sort of naturally came back to me, this idea of getting out there and being outside and taking photos. Ostensibly, I'm a landscape photographer. I love shooting landscapes. I'm an early bird like my dad is, so getting up with the sunrise, finding the nice light, and just being outside is kind of my happy place. And naturally, photography runs along with that for me. I think if I'm outside, I've got a camera in my hand. That's kind of how it goes these days, and I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But you also have business doing weddings and other types of photography. Is that right?
I do. I don't like to pigeonhole myself in a way. I really like to sort of get involved in all different types of photography. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but it's kind of how I've always been. I never like to specialize just in one thing. I think I'm probably happiest when I'm outside taking photos at sunrise or sunset or any kind of landscape, but I really enjoy interacting with people. So for me, I think weddings and events and stuff like that just gives me an opportunity to explore different aspects of photography, different aspects of the skill base, and interact with people on a different level. So I get a lot out of it, a different thing, a different set of stuff out of it than I do from landscape photography. So it's good fun. I enjoy weddings. They're tiring and they can be stressful, but I think I get emotionally involved. So by the end of the day, I feel like family. It's good.
You said that for a while, you pursued an artist's career, but what did you do? Painting?
Just illustration, really. I've always drawn in my whole life. So, and watercolors as well. My dad's a watercolor painter, so I kind of grew up with that, and it just wasn't quite right, and I got discouraged a lot when I was a teenager by various art teachers. I'm not a very abstract person. when it comes. In fact, when it comes to photography as well, I like to paint and I like to shoot what I see. So when I went through the education system, especially with art, that really was discouraged. They were trying to make me think abstractly, and they got very frustrated with me when I didn't. So eventually, I just gave up and found my niche when it came back to photography, I think.
Well, I would definitely classify your photography as artistic. I mean, at least it looks artistic to me. So, and if maybe later we can show some of your photos, and I'm sure our viewers will agree with that. Mathieu?
So
Any questions?
Well, yeah. So if you want to tell us a little bit about which camera you're using and why you are using it, and maybe which camera did you have before?
Yep, sure. At the minute, I'm shooting with a Fujifilm X-T1, which came about a bit by accident. I mean, I did the research before I fell into using a Fujifilm, but I kind of went into the camera shop and I knew I wanted a smaller camera. I wanted a camera that I could take around places because I always wanted to be shooting, and I just decided there and then it could have easily been an Olympus camera I picked up, and I did sort of. I still kind of want one if I'm honest, but I can't have two. I can't have three systems going on. That would just be ridiculous. So I started with the Fujifilm X Pro 1, which when I first got it, I sort of went, hang on a second, it isn't that much smaller than I thought it would be smaller than it was. So I kind of went into it a bit blindly, but I really loved it. I really loved the X Pro 1. It was difficult to use because I wasn't used to that kind of rangefinder camera, but it made me think about how I took photos, how I worked with the camera instead of being a bit, I guess sometimes a bit lazy about it as I was being with my digital SLR. And unfortunately that died a death in my camera bag, and unfortunately had to upgrade to an X-T1. So now I'm playing with the X-T1, which I get on with it really well. I think in a way we were made for each other, me and that camera. The ergonomics of it, we work really well together.
Love at first sight.
Yes, indeed.
And which lens did you use with the X-T1?
I used quite a few. I think the one that sticks on it most at the minute is my 10 to 24mm. And I kind of went through the stages of, I had the 18mm, which was never wide enough for me. And then I've had a thing about buying prime lenses, so I moved to the 14mm, and it's a beautiful lens, wonderfully sharp, great. But I tried out the 10 to 24, a friend's 10 to 24, and realized I was really missing that ultra wide landscape feel, and so I went and bought the 10 to 24, and I haven't really looked back. I also have the 18 to 135 now. I haven't really been able to use it that much, although I did use it at an events shoot that was very dark, and it actually performed incredibly well, way better than I thought it would, and so I'm really pleased with that lens. And I've got the 35mm 1.4, which is just possibly one of the best lenses I've ever used. It's so sharp, it's beautiful for portraits. I mean, it's oh gosh, I can't even describe my love for that lens. I think I'd be lost if I didn't have that lens. It's just lovely, lovely. Oh, I've got the 60mm as well, but I rarely use it. It's just sort of sitting there, and I don't know if it's waiting for its time to be used. But at the minute, it's just in my camera bag, not doing much.
Do you normally carry all those lenses when you go out to shoot landscapes? You have a bag with the body, all the lenses, tripod, filters, or would you rather travel lighter and choose one lens and say, today I'm going to use the 10-24 only and just go out there with that, or you bring everything just in case?
I think I'm definitely a bring everything just in case person. Sometimes I like to challenge myself, but no, I've been known to pack everything and the kitchen sink just in case. So yes, I take most of my lenses with me. I mean, like I said, the wide angle stays on it most of the time, but especially now with the 18-135, there's opportunities for landscape photography with the zoom aspect and getting into the details of stuff, and so yeah, so that's in my camera bag all the time. The one I probably leave at home will be the 60mm, but yeah, so the 35mm is always there just in case.
It's not a lot of space or weight saving, leaving the 60s very
No,
small and
no,
light.
not really.
I got that one also. So,
No,
and I
it is.
don't
It's
use
very
my
lightweight.
60 either, probably because I don't do much macro, and the 60 is a macro lens, so I
Yes.
tend to not
Yeah.
to use it much, which is a pity because it's also a good lens for portraits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen some great portraits taken with the 60mm actually. It's really nice for that. I've been hoping to use it for that at some point, and hopefully it'll get the opportunity. Else it might find itself on eBay.
So you do a lot of events and weddings. So how do you find the system for events and weddings? The Fuji system is quite popular for weddings. A lot of wedding photographers are starting to use either an X100 S or T as a backup cameras, and there are people actually switching completely to a Fuji system. So what are the things that you think they work the most, and maybe why people are switching to the system for that reason, and if there's something that doesn't work well for this kind of work?
I think in terms of wedding photography, the XT1 produce, especially with I mean, I use the 35mm, but I know the 56mm as well is a beautiful lens for wedding photography. It just creates really gorgeous images. There's just a certain quality to it that I wouldn't necessarily get with my Canon. And I find that more and more, especially for reportage stuff, like it has to be the Fujifilm. It just exudes class. And when I look at my photos, you can tell that there's a different mechanism, there's a different way of it dealing with the images that I think just really works for wedding photography. In terms of moving entirely over, I haven't moved entirely over yet, just because I don't necessarily trust it in certain situations. I think it takes a certain kind of wedding and a certain kind of bride and groom to be able to use your mirrorless camera. They'll want those softer shots, natural light, being able to, I don't know, explore different, be slow about it in a way. So I shoot quite a lot of Asian weddings, and they're very fast paced, and you kind of have to be on the ball, and you don't want to be fiddling around too much. You want to just be there, get the shot, because it moves so fast. And I think that's where the XT1 doesn't necessarily let me down, but it's just not quite up to that yet for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, the standard isn't there yet. But for reportage stuff, for the portraits, for when I've got time to work with it, the results I get, yeah, they please me. They please me a lot.
So you still carry a DSLR when you do weddings?
I do, yes.
Which one?
I still got my 5D Mark III because it's full frame and it's incredible in low light, and I can push a button and I know it'll work. So I think for stuff that's in dark surroundings or stuff that's very fast paced for me, I just know that it's going to nail it. But that's kind of all it comes out for these days. It's sort of getting a bit of dust on it.
And RAW or JPEG?
Always RAW. I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that. I mean, the Lightroom. I don't know why. I mean, there's workarounds, but Lightroom hasn't been so good with dealing with the Fujifilm RAW files. So I've been using a few workarounds to get around that and regain the sharpness. But to be honest, the JPEGs out of my XT1 just, gosh, the Wi-Fi functionality with it and being able to get a JPEG off it and like onto my phone so I can play around with it and share it immediately. That's kind of a revelation for me, especially if I'm shooting live events. I can sort of get stuff out there straight away, and you don't have to tether or any of that. It's a simple process, and they're good quality JPEGs. And I don't think there's anything in the larger camera market that can do that yet without having to buy an add-on. I think that's really invaluable.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is that I've heard many photographers say that the JPEGs that the Fuji cameras produce are really, really good. So many times they would just shoot JPEG and don't go with the trouble of shooting RAW and doing lots of post-processing. And especially, as you said, for immediate sharing, as when you're at events and so on, you can just transfer them with a tap of the finger on your phone, well, more or less, to the phone and then share directly. That's great. I've used that when I was traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling with just an iPad, no computer, no Lightroom, so I would just transfer to the iPad and do a bit of editing, maybe with Snapseed,
yes,
and then share straight away.
Yeah, I think there's more and more this is going to become something that it's, having an immediate image that you can use is going to become something that it's already part of what we're doing, part of our workflow. But more and more that's going to become something that, you buy a camera on, really. It's going to be part of that process. And when I had the opportunity to upgrade to the XT1, it was one of the things I was most happy about. Because I used to use a Canon 6D a couple of years ago, and that had the Wi-Fi function on it. And it was never very good because the JPEGs that they sent through were just tiny. They were really, really tiny. It was pointless, really. So, and knowing that the Fujifilm allows you to have JPEGs that are of a decent size really helps as well.
The reason to have the possibility to share instantly a photograph is the reason that smartphones are so popular as a photography camera as well. I mean, that's what it works. So I think that more and more all the companies, all the brands are trying to push that, and it's true for events. So sometimes for events, you finish an event and the person asks you, can you give me 10 pictures because I need it for the press release that has to be online in 1 hour, for example.
Yes.
And if you can do it with just the camera, you remember those pictures that they usually want a group picture, maybe a large picture that showed the location, and then something else that happened there, and you can just quickly select it with the camera and send it. So it's true that it's a nice thing for that. I know that sometimes they even do some still lifes on some products, and then they upload it directly on Instagram or Pinterest, for example.
Yes.
So it's getting in the professional work as well.
I think it's interesting because social media isn't necessarily scrutinizing your images for noise or any sort of infractions. Social media is more about the impact of the image itself. And I think when you come to prints and fine art, and when they're blown up big, then it's about the real quality. But yeah, with social media, it doesn't really matter if it's a small size, if it's only 100 meg rather than, I don't know, 50 gig TIFF file. It doesn't matter, and I think that comes across. I've noticed that on Twitter, because obviously Twitter kind of ruins your resolution anyway. It doesn't matter what you put up there.
Facebook as well.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe Google Plus is a bit better, but they all comprise the images anyway. So, one of your work that I find the most interesting is your pictures of Birmingham. That they also got on a BBC website, if I remember correctly, or
They went around a lot of newspapers, the Times and the Daily Mail, as much as I hate to admit it, and a couple of the local newspapers as well, and I think a couple have been up on the BBC.
I really like those images because I went to Birmingham a few times, and it's actually a city I like. But when I see your pictures, it really looks like I didn't look enough when I was there, and I find your work in Birmingham quite similar in a way to the work you do with landscapes. So, do you have the same approach when you do cityscapes and landscapes, and what you're looking for in your city that catch your attention and that make you think that's going to be a good picture?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think if you asked me a couple of years ago, I would say that I didn't like shooting in cities, and that it wasn't really anything that interests me. But I think getting frustrated with a place a couple of years ago when I moved here, just getting frustrated with being in the city and not being able to access the countryside as readily as I used to be, it became something that I did just because I wanted to make friends with where I lived. So um, Birmingham has lots of interesting little bits that you wouldn't really know about it unless you spend a day or a week wandering around on foot. And yeah, I think that the approach is the same. I'm very much about checking what the weather's going to be doing. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is have a look and see if the sky is going to do anything. If it's foggy, I get excited about fog. Fog is the best. If there's anything that I can work with, anything that I can bring into the cityscape to give it a lift, to give it something interesting, to give it something different. Birmingham's one of those cities that architecturally is all over the place, so there's so many different aspects to it. You've got the modern buildings and the Victorian buildings, and they all coexist. And I think it just gives a really nice overview of almost the different layers of history going through, and now you've got like the new library and the new builds and this new aesthetic in a way that's also blending in. And I think, yeah, so I am always approaching it from a, how can I make this new and different? How can I bring out a different aspect of it? And at the same time, in a weird way, it's become like a restoration of pride for the city itself, a city that gets put down a lot, a city that's on the rise in a way. I think the people of it are starting to take ownership of it as a place, and we're starting to come together as a community, and being part of that makes me really proud, I think. So, but yeah, it's definitely a landscape photographer's eye, I guess. I guess it's quite a similar thing. It's harder in a city, trying to find a different angle, but.
So
there's a couple of pictures, yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to show our viewers some of your Birmingham gallery on your website. So if you just
how many times you go to the same spot, trying to capture the best shot or the perfect shot?
I probably, with Birmingham, gosh, quite a few times, and I'll keep going back to see if I can get something different, but I'm also trying to mix it up a little and try and get some different shots as well. With anywhere, I think it's very difficult to get a good shot in one place just off the bat. I think almost that never seems to happen. It's like every time you go, you get to know the place a bit better, you get to know the spots a bit better, and then when the conditions are right, then you kind of know what you're going to be doing. And I think that's when the planning aspect comes in as well. For instance, the Selfridges shot that we're looking at here, I mean, it's a place that I walk past on my commute, so I know where it is, and I know if the conditions are right, I know where I need to be. And that was just a foggy morning that turned out to be a great sunrise, and I was just in the right place at the right time, but because I've been there about 10 times beforehand, so kind of knew where it was going to look good in the winter.
Yeah, as Mattia was saying, these photos really have a landscapey, dreaming quality to them. It's typical what you would expect from cityscape photography, especially in an industrial city. It would be something more gritty, black and white, grainy stuff, and instead you have a different perspective. And of course, these are beautiful. You're showing the city in the best light, I think.
That's definitely my intention. Although I think, isn't it lovely when different styles like that can coexist? So you can have the same shot, but in a completely different way. You can have it in black and white and grainy and street photography, and then you can have it at sunrise where it glows and people almost don't recognize where it is. And I think the juxtaposition of those different styles really sort of, I love that. I love the kind of street photography element and also being able to show it in a different light.
These kind of sunsets and sunrises happen frequently there. I had more the impression that it was more gray and rainy and foggy.
Yes, it might take a lot of sort of weeks on end until we get one, but when there's one, I'm out there. It's good at this time of year. I don't have to get up too early.
That's true.
And well, I also really like your landscape work. So did for your landscape work sometimes you think about your artwork, like your painting or your illustration? Did sometimes you manage to connect the two arts together?
I think, yeah, I think I take a view of, I probably do quite a bit of post-processing because it is a little bit like working on a piece of art. You've got the raw image, as it were, and then everything I do after to it brings it to a whole in a way. And what I'm trying to do is replicate how I see it, and how I see stuff. It tends to be very colourful, it pops a lot. I see quite vibrant colours, and that makes me happy, and I like to bring out those vibrant colours. I'm a colourful, I mean, I like working in black and white as well, so it's a bit. I love working in black and white at the minute, but yeah, I think it is a combination of the process, and yet that sometimes you have to learn sometimes to leave a picture alone. I don't know if that makes sense. Sometimes I've looked at something and I can go, well, no, this is just too much. What I'm doing is really taking away from the natural aspects that are making it worthy in the first place. So yeah, I think it's a difficult balance, and I probably have several attempts sometimes with certain images just to get them right. And then of course it's subjective anyway. So what's right? There is no right. There's just your own interpretation of the image itself. And yeah, working in black and white is a similar process because you have to get the balance right in a different way.
Okay, coming back a bit to hardware, to gear. Is there? You already mentioned that sometimes the mirrorless system, the Fuji, the XT1, doesn't really lets you down, but you don't trust it for some kind of work. So can you maybe give us tell us what you really like about a mirrorless system, or Fuji in particular, and something that maybe you dislike or you wish that kind of system had and you regret, or you think that the DSLR system was better in this respect?
I really like the ergonomics of the smaller cameras. The weight, I mean, I'm short, I'm little, so having a camera that's, half my weight, carrying that around is just, I swear it's going to make me smaller. I'll be 4'11" by the time I've stopped carrying them around. So I really like the size. I mean, Fuji lenses, gosh, they're mind-blowingly good. I love them. They're well built. The glass is great. I wouldn't ever be without them, to be honest, anymore. I think having all the buttons on the top, being able to do stuff manually, that really works for me. I really like that. Just the way I can get a proper feel for the camera. And I think they take amazing images. The sensor works. It's an incredible sensor. It produces wonderful JPEGs, as we've spoken about. I think you have to learn to get used to it, but once you do, you can really start working together. I think, for me, and I know this argument comes up a lot, but I really love working with full-frame cameras, so it would be nice at some point, although I'm sure that I've been upgrading all of my glass, to have a full-frame Fujifilm that I could trust at high ISO settings. And I'm not saying it can't do high ISO settings, for me, I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to noise, and although noise removal is a wonderful tool, that for me, I prefer to have not that much noise in the first place, because the degradation of images, it frustrates me as an artist, I think. So having a larger sensor and more capability to be able to shoot in low light would certainly be something that would interest me in a mirrorless system. Of course, there's the trade-off of the size, isn't there? And it's kind of an argument that could go round the circle, but it'll be interesting to see where they go next. I mean, some of the Sony cameras, they're kind of already pushing the boundaries of this, and I'd love to try one of those at some point. But like I said, I can't justify having 17 different systems unless I solve in my house.
And then you end up carrying too many cameras, and so it's become heavier. And
definitely, there's been days where I go out with my Fujifilm and my Canon, and my partner's like, "What are you doing? All you've done is just add weight."
Yeah.
So everybody wants a small camera, lightweight one with a full frame sensor with
exactly
10mm to 200 f1.4 lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredibly sharp.
And very small.
From the center to the corners across the whole range.
It's on my Christmas
it takes
list.
10 frames per second, and it focuses as fast as any. Yeah.
We're never pleased.
And it takes the picture for you.
Yes,
You
yes.
just have to think about it, and it does the rest. I mean, yeah, the full frame debate is always there, and I think that there are a lot of people that are wishing somehow that Fuji eventually can go full frame. I personally don't think that is going to happen soon, but just I think that Fuji needs to concentrate on bringing more lenses, which it is already doing that, and to make the system more perfect. So especially regarding the autofocus, I mean, the X-T1 autofocus is good, but it's true that there are other systems that can do better. So I think they have room for improvement there, and they actually improve a lot. I mean, the X Pro 1 was, or the original X100 were terrible without the focus. If you look at the X-T1 now, there has been a big step in that direction. So, I mean, I can see Fuji in 1 or 2 years have an almost perfect system. After that, we have to see what's the market will become, because I mean the market right now is pretty crazy with all these new cameras, and I mean Sony is releasing any sort of cameras, full frame and everything to see how the market reacts, and if eventually full frame in 3-4 years will become the standard, maybe they will go full frame as well. I think that they will just observe the market and see how it goes. I mean, I'm sure that that's a possibility, but for now it wouldn't make sense. So because they have to redesign the lenses. So I mean, build a new system when you have the first system that is not complete. It's maybe a risk they don't want to take at that point.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before, that it's about the driver as well, isn't it? It's about the photographer. The camera is a camera, but it's me who's working it. It's me who's working with it, and that's always a learning curve. It's not something you intrinsically just know when you pick up a camera that how it's going to work. And I'm still learning stuff about my X-T1, mostly because I've always failed to read the instructions for anything, and I just sort of go out there and shoot and see what works and what doesn't. But
who reads the instructions?
There are people who do. It scares me. I don't even know what my instructions are. But yeah, so just kind of, I think I can do better with it as well, and I think this is where I wanted to bring it back to, because yeah, camera systems and cameras are amazing, and there's so many opportunities to use different systems and work with different systems, but at the same time, that doesn't make me a better photographer, and it's never going to make me a better photographer. So the onus is on me, especially, to work harder work better, create better work, and make the camera work with me. And I think having that and knowing that makes me excited in a way that I can there's stuff that I can do, and there's always new levels that I can get to and new aspirations. And I mean, the Fujifilm was perfect for that. It will work with me, and I love that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was just the other day I was reading and re-quoting on my blog an article by Tom Hogan, made an analysis of the state of the digital photography market. And he concluded with declaring this week the "I'm done spending, I need to go shoot" week. So
Excellent.
I said, yeah, I mean, I'm going to do the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Even for the new lenses announced by Fuji, the one that just came out, the 50 to 140, 60 to 55, everybody was raving about those lenses. But they are expensive, and they're not small.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
I
can't
justify the law of physics. Eventually, it's.
There's the photo, isn't there, of the XE2 and then the 50 to 140, and it just, the poor XE2 looks like it's hanging off, like it's just a toy camera. It's just, no. I'd like one though, if Santa Claus is listening, if Father Christmas is listening.
I think that Fuji is just trying to, answering the demands, especially in the professional ground. I mean, the 50 to 140 is the classic 70 to 200 on full frame DSLRs, and many professional photographers use that lens. I mean, it's probably one of the most used lenses by professional photographers. I mean, if you see also the second edition, the 56mm with the aperture filter, it's a very specific lens in the end, and probably if you do portraits every day, maybe that's a lens you can consider. Otherwise, you can use the standard 56, which is really great. So they're trying to bring these very specific products for a very specific market. So I think in a way it's a good thing, because they show that they are committed to the system completely, and I think that slowly other brands are realizing the same thing. I mean, what Sony is doing, and it's interesting as well, is bring professional support. They have it already in Japan now. They bring it in the US and Europe as well. And for some photographers, that's everything. So that's how you make a system perfect. It's not just camera and lenses, but then there's everything around: accessories, flash units, professional support. And so I think that in that direction, Fujifilm, I think, is working. It's making the right choice, I think. And then we'll see what will happen.
It's probably the lens I miss most from my Canon setup is the 70 to 200. I mean, the 18 to 135 gets around that in some respects, but it's not a fixed aperture, and the 70 to 200 2.8, especially at weddings, is a wonderful lens to use, because you can just step back and let people be natural. So yeah, it's definitely good to see that they've got that in their range. Not that I can afford it right now, but at some point I'll sell my soul and buy one.
All right, so I think we are near the end of our episode. So this was an awesome conversation, very interesting. Is there anything else that, Verity, you would like people to know about you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, please do check out my work if you enjoyed this conversation, or feel free not to if you thought I waffled for an hour. But my website address is along the bottom. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, the usual social mediums. If you want to talk about anything, anyone wants to chat about anything, or get into a conversation, then they're certainly welcome to get in touch with me. But thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. It's good.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for coming, Mathieu.
Yes. I mean, thank you, Verity, as well. It was interesting. I mean, I know Verity personally. We met two times, and I love her work as well. And we interviewed her on Mirrorless, so I mean, I'm glad we could do this episode for Stop Lounge as well.
All right. So thank you all very much again.
Thank you.
And have a nice day.
Have a nice weekend.
Right.
Take care.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye bye.